Almost everyone makes the same mistake when entering crypto for the first time, and emotionally feels completely logical at first, because beginners enter crypto looking for fast transformation, fast money, fast freedom, fast success. But emotionally, that mindset creates dangerous behavior immediately, because once people enter crypto emotionally, they stop thinking long-term and start chasing excitement instead. That is where the first big mistake begins. Not with Bitcoin, not with technology, but with emotions. Because emotional investors usually believe bigger risk creates faster success. And emotionally, that idea becomes addictive, especially online, because social media constantly shows luxury, profits, success stories, overnight wealth, and emotionally, beginners start comparing themselves immediately. That creates pressure, and pressure creates impulsive decisions, especially financially. That is why many beginners buy random coins emotionally, not because they understand them, but because they fear missing out. FOMO, that emotion alone, has destroyed countless portfolios, because emotionally reactive people usually buy during excitement, not during clarity, and excitement creates emotional blindness. That is dangerous, especially in crypto, because crypto moves emotionally very fast. Hype spreads fast, fear spreads fast, greed spreads fast, and emotionally unprepared investors usually get trapped inside those cycles. That is why the first crypto mistake is usually not technical. It is psychological. People enter emotionally, without a system, no strategy, no risk management, no patience, only excitement, and excitement alone is never enough financially, because emotional investing creates unstable behavior, and unstable behavior creates unstable outcomes. That is why experienced investors usually look calmer emotionally, not because markets become easy, but because experience teaches emotional control slowly, especially after mistakes. That is why many investors eventually realize something important. Crypto rewards discipline far more than excitement, because disciplined investors protect capital carefully. They move slower, they think longer term, and emotionally, they avoid forcing success impatiently. That is a huge advantage, especially during volatility, because emotionally reactive investors usually panic during corrections, but structured investors already expect volatility emotionally. That changes behavior completely. That is why systems matter, because systems reduce emotional chaos, and reduced emotional chaos creates better long-term decisions, especially in crypto. That is why beginners should focus less on becoming rich quickly and focus more on surviving emotionally, because survival creates opportunity, especially long-term. Remember, please, the first crypto mistake usually begins emotionally, not financially, and this is where many people finally understand crypto differently, because after losing emotionally once, people begin realizing that investing is mostly psychological, not only financial, because emotionally, markets constantly test behavior, fear during crashes, greed during rallies, impatience during slow periods, and emotionally reactive investors usually fail those tests repeatedly. That is why discipline matters so much, because discipline protects behavior during emotional moments, especially online, where hype constantly manipulates attention. That is why emotionally intelligent investors usually avoid chasing every opportunity emotionally, because they understand something important. Not every opportunity is worth the emotional risk, especially in crypto, because emotionally exhausted investors often make worse decisions over time. That is why sustainability matters, not excitement. Sustainability, because sustainable investing creates emotional stability, and emotional stability creates better consistency, especially long-term. That is why many experienced investors eventually simplify their strategy completely. Fewer emotional decisions, more structure, more patience, because emotionally complex behavior usually creates chaos financially. That is why beginners should avoid trying to become experts immediately. There is no need to rush, because emotionally rushed investing usually ends badly, especially during hype cycles. That is why patient investors often focus heavily on risk management first, protecting capital, protecting emotions, protecting long-term consistency, because survival matters more than excitement, especially in crypto. That is why emotionally mature investors usually react differently during fear. They slow down, they think carefully, and they avoid impulsive decisions emotionally, because emotionally impulsive investing usually creates regret later. That is why mindset matters, because mindset shapes behavior, and behavior shapes long-term outcomes, especially financially. That is why beginners should focus more on learning slowly than chasing fast profits emotionally, because knowledge reduces emotional panic, especially during volatility. That is why emotionally disciplined investors usually survive longer, and survival creates long-term opportunity, especially in crypto. Remember, please, do not let excitement control decisions. Protect your capital, protect your emotions, and think long-term.